Hi, welcome to another conversation of conversations we've never had. Today we're going to be thinking about parents, the responsibility of parents when a child has gone through sexual abuse and how complex it can be for them when their child's gone through so much trauma and then they hold on to trauma like it's their own. So I'm always sitting with that because of my own experience and I guess working with parents as well. So what's your thoughts on parents, particularly mothers, which can become quite complex for a lot of young people, holding on to their child's story like it happened to them?
That's a tough one.
I know. I thought I'd get right in there.
You're just going to throw the hard ones at me.
Exactly.
I think that's always really hard because the abuse has happened to the child, or at least that instance of abuse has happened to the child, but it's felt so profoundly within the family. And I think when those family members or parents and carers also have their own lived experience, it can bring up so much stuff for them. So that can be really traumatizing to them because it's an additional layer.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I think that's why we need services who are really focused on supporting the whole family, but reorientating the parents in that moment around the child's needs rather than their own. So we're recognising the impact that this has had on parents and carers, and actually it is often them who are having to firefight all of the services, the criminal justice response. They're feeling a lot of their own things like guilt and shame and blame, like they didn't see it happening, and that's really hard for them. But sometimes that voice can become louder than the voice of the child. And often what we see sometimes is a child that will come into therapy because they need therapy, or at least this is what we're being told. But then when we sit and we talk to the child and the young person, they don't want therapy.
Yeah.
They actually want their parent or carer to get support. And I think the really hard thing about that is that a lot of services right now don't have support for parents and carers. And so then what often happens is the voice of the parent, the actions of the parent, and then sometimes as well they get confused with the voice and the actions of the practitioner, become louder than our curiosity around needing to sit and listen to what the child has to say in the moment. And so I think for me it's always having to come back and remind ourselves that in this instance we are here for the child, and actually has anybody spoken to them this week about what it is that they want and how they feel?
I think parent work is fundamental to the healing of a child, because that parent or those parents are the witnesses to their child's daily life. Mm-hmm. So I think parent work is the most important part of supporting the child, especially if a child doesn't want therapy, is how a parent can best support that child is what will get them through in a better way. And I think about my own story or my own life, that if my mum had a certain amount of support, maybe the chaos and the madness after the disclosure would have lessened. Maybe it won't, because one is born with a character and a nature, maybe they can't change it. But I think it's such a devastating, life-changing impact on everyone in the family, the siblings, the entire family. And I think it closes a family down. It locks us inside a dark snow globe where it's not lovely snow. It's like really grey and really awful. And I think if more people worked with families and supported families, it's like maybe we could find a door in that glass snow globe and parents can start seeing a light so they can help support their young person. And I think so often in the work that I do is the parents have gone through a trauma and they might have their own lived experience of sexual abuse. But the truth is, the trauma that the parents are here for belongs to the child, and they've gone through the action of the abuse. And it's very important for parents to be able to sit and hear difficult things and to be able to be available, because the healthier a parent is, the better they can support their child. So I'm passionate about working with parents and trying to allow parents to be a little bit separate from the story so they can better hold on to their child and better support their child.
I think there's such a thing in that moment as well, with parents being so focused on the child that then their own support needs fall down. But it's, you know, the trick is to give them permission to take a step back and say, hey, if your child sees you looking after yourself, like having a shower, like doing something like a bedtime story, like take a moment for yourself, because that will mean so much to your child. They will see and pick up on the things that are happening for you, and that is a step towards healing. Because I think for me, what we always have to come back to is the heaviness of the responsibility that the child holds. So the child has held the secret and the darkness for so long, and they've held that, and they've held the responsibility and the weight of it. Then they've held the responsibility of the disclosure, and then always in life they will hold the weight of responsibility of that disclosure and the impact on the family or on the people closest around them. They will always hold that, and it will be hard to find a way to put that down. It doesn't matter how well that disclosure or first situation goes, that weight of responsibility is always held by the child. And I think some of the challenges that I often see is when the child is moving into a different space and the family is kind of really stuck back where they were. So for parents and carers is also to think about the forms of support that they might need that are not just therapeutic. Actually, a lot of the work that our parents and carers do is action focused. They are in action mode. Help them to channel it, because that action can help them to create a change for other families, for other parents and carers, that can then really support their child to just be at home in the moment that they're in.
We had one parent who said in the end, because you forget the simple moments, don't you? You forget the moments of conversation, of dancing, those moments of just freedom. And this mum reconnected with something that her and her daughter loved, and it was dancing. And she told us that she started dancing with her daughter again, and they were in the, it was after disclosure, there was no light, and all of a sudden they put music on again, and the mum started dancing, and so did the daughter. And I think it's about what happens is, like, there's always this shadow coming in. There's always the shadow of the perpetrator in every room, and it sounded in that moment that there was no space for the perpetrator. There was just movement, and there was just dance. So I think parent work is so important because of the simplicity of what we're reminding them. It's not always about the complex things you've got to go to. It's not about having to hear your child in their graphic story. It's not about the complex stuff, because it's too complex to try and get to. It's too much of a web. So I think it's about reminding practitioners and parents actually that there is still a possibility of a dance. And if it's not, we know that some parents don't believe that child, and that is an absolute horror and can be horrific for that young person. But my hope is then there's someone else in the community, whether it's a teacher or a friend, that they can have their moment together where it's just a moment of lightness, because it doesn't mean that that lightness needs to pull through the day. It means that it's just that moment that can help them.
I think there's also just recognising that that is a journey that will be lifelong. Yeah. The tension between how the family has changed and how the family dynamic will always change when a disclosure is made. You can never go back to the way things were. You have to move forward alongside a different reality now. And it will always be just a little bit hard, but that doesn't mean that there aren't beautiful moments that you can find in between them. So just those simple moments in a day are what a young person will hold on to in their relationship with families. And it's absolutely critical that we keep coming back to that, rather than looking for this giant magic wand and cure that can make everything go away, and just sit with beautiful, simple moments day by day.
I think it's about what we always talk about is moving forward alongside the trauma. And I think if we get parents to understand that there's no going back, there's no moving forward, or it's just, there has to be a level of understanding that your child's been through this trauma. You as a family have gone through something massive, and there's a before that you can hold on to. But now you're in this life that's taken place after the disclosure, and there's only moving forward alongside. And I think once that realization hits, then the healing can take place, because there's no forward momentum.
No.
There's just living with. And living with doesn't mean that it's a hard, difficult, awful life. It just means a level of acceptance, because we can't change what's happened.
It's like the snow globe that you were talking about. It's like when the disclosure's made, maybe the snow globe is full of chaotic, dark snow.
Yeah.
And then slowly, how do we reintroduce the bits of glitter or the pieces of white snow that then mix together and start to settle, and eventually will be calmer, but they will always be alongside one another.
And I think sometimes families get so locked up and there's so much chaos within a family. And I think in our adult life, your family can become different, and they can become your very close friends, because sometimes it is so difficult to reconnect with that parent and to have those conversations. So I think once you start moving forward alongside your story and start finding your community, your world starts getting larger, and you can start embracing other things.